Well, of course, the United States has been the epicenter of global news for the past week and a half or so as the world continues to react to the news of the brutal death of George Floyd. Jadon Sancho led the way in football in a goal celebration, condemning the nature of his passing, while Marcus Thuram and Weston McKennie also showed their feelings in the Bundesliga over last weekend in England. Players have taken the knee in training to show their support. Very, very compelling pictures. This is Liverpool as part of their tribute as well. Whilst other sports have also paid their tributes to, there's a shot of Jadon Sancho that we were referring to. Nigel, let's come to you first, because obviously you are stateside, as I said, at the epicenter of this story. What is the feeling over there like right now?
It's a subject that I think that you can really do a whole show on, because it relates so much to life in general, and also, you know, regardless of being a footballer or a Formula One driver or anything like that, if you are a black man, these are life experiences and things that you have to go through. In my opinion, so far in the air, I think this situation will be something that people will remember for the rest of their life. I think this situation will go down in history. I have a feeling that this is really going to be a turning point, and it will be more than just lip service. We've had a few incidents similar about racism and equality that's happened previously, and I've kind of felt it's been lip service. You're seeing now that there's been protesting in pretty much nearly all the states in America. There's been protesting around the world. I think that this video has really been the eye-opener for people, because it was so graphic, it was so evident, and you can't call it nothing else but murder. And it was murder by people that are paid to serve and protect the public. And it's not the first time that it's happened to a black man. But in my opinion, I just believe that this is more than just lip service now, because people are really uniting in the protests. You're seeing so many people of different races and nationalities out there protesting together and really trying to take a stand and understand. And for athletes and sports stars, especially being in such mixed dressing rooms, you don't want it just to be lip service, and you don't want it just to be, oh, you know, let's put up a Black Lives Matter Instagram post or something along those lines. I think playing in football, like Darren and I did in dressing rooms, and you being in mixed dressing rooms, you'd want some of your white players to actually talk more to their black players and understand the experiences and try and understand where they're coming from, and, you know, what it's like. Don't talk for them, but try and understand them and see how you could do, or what you could do better, or what you could educate your even younger kids to do better, to understand the struggles that young black men have to face. And on the other hand, like even yesterday, I said I was going to call him out for this. I came through the Wimbledon Academy with Dean Lewington. Now, I call Dean Lewington my middle-class white friend. He gives me a real insight into what middle-class white society is thinking in England. And we had a great conversation yesterday. And he's someone who grew up with privilege, and he knows he did. You know, he was raised tremendously well by his mum and dad. And he's been someone that's been very open to listening and having an insight. And he even admitted to me yesterday that if he didn't come through Wimbledon's academy, he probably would have never been around Black, Indian, Turkish, all the different nationalities that we had at Wimbledon's academy. He said he probably wouldn't have experienced what it's like or had conversations with us and learned about different religions and beliefs. But he was someone that was open to having the conversation. We had a great discussion, and it's all about raising our kids, the next generation, the really young generation, to understand that just because you have a darker skin doesn't make you inferior to another race.
Darren, it's a really huge point, isn't it? I as a white middle-aged man, might well have empathy. I might well have sympathy. I might well have intellectually the idea, but I need to be educated, like Nigel was saying, what it is like day to day to be a black man facing racism and prejudice on a moment to moment basis. And what Nigel was saying is, I really get the feeling now that people want to be educated. This isn't about lip service. Do you get that feeling too?
Yeah, I do. I mean, as Nigel was saying there with these points, this feels like we are really coming together and trying to beat this for the first time. I mean, we've been talking about 30 years now. This has probably been going on from the Rodney King thing. I know it's been going on hundreds and hundreds of years, but I think Rodney King 30 years ago in 92, I think that kind of opened people's eyes up. But then it's been the same thing up until this point. But I just think now people have gotten to the end of it and they've said, well, something needs to be done. But not only that as well, you're right, for the first time in a long, long time, I feel like people are actually coming together. Like not only just white people, Asian people, or people of all different races, but you look at some of the mainstream, say, sponsors, people like Nike, Adidas, everyone, Netflix, all the different companies, they're all now understanding that this is wrong and that we all need to come together. And I think for the first time, I think there's real momentum behind this because as Nigel was saying before, I felt a large part of it was lip service. Like every now and then they give a free T-shirt out and it's like says "kick it out" or there's a little campaign or Black History Month, and I don't think people take that seriously enough. It's kind of like as soon as that month's finished or that period's finished, right, we'll just get on with it. But to see so many people coming together, you know what I mean, getting on social media, as I said, mainstream companies getting behind it, Sky Sports talking about it, Talk Sport, they've spoke about it. Because for me, there was a time where it would be kind of a little segment of a show and people would be like, hey, that's done. We've now cross that off. Let's move on to the next thing. And you think, well, hold on, this is a really, really important subject. I mean, this affects a lot of people. So I kind of feel, as Nigel was saying, it was a lot of lip service. But finally, I feel like with us all pulling together, I feel like maybe we can overcome this. Listen, it will never stop. I believe racism will never, ever stop. It will always be there. But finally, people have realised that us as Black people, we can't do it ourselves. We need help. We've been speaking for so long and no one really wanted to hear. All of a sudden now, people are coming together and thinking, well, hold on, this isn't right. And again, the video's there for all to see. That's not the first video, by the way. There's loads of videos throughout the history where you see, obviously, police brutality. I mean, poor Colin Kaepernick, he was speaking about this years and years ago. He got blackballed by the NFL, and yet they're putting statements out saying, you know, we support social injustice. Well, hold on, this is what he was talking about. This is what he sacrificed his career for. So as I said, for me personally, it's good to see everybody come together, and hopefully, if this momentum can keep going, eventually we can try and get on the right side of history.
Yeah, Colin
just to add
Kaepernick's
to that,
still a
Rob,
free agent, Nigel, isn't he? And the NFL have come out and apologised.
Yes, that occurred yesterday. I think a group of the top stars in NFL, the Black Stars, made a video campaign yesterday in which they were basically challenging the authority, challenging the NFL to say, you need to come out and make a statement and, you know, stand up for us as players and for us as a race of men. And the NFL did. The commissioner, Roger Goodell, came and apologized and said that they were wrong. They were completely wrong on the kneeling process. And that just shows, I think, of the epic momentum around the world of, like Darren said, how all these companies, these big companies are just not accepting it no more. And they're actually trying to listen and make that effort. And just for the football fans that are watching this show, I just want them to understand that, you know, this also could relate to football with certain things that are always put in the media, certain negative words that are used to describe Black men and Black players. So I've had experiences in certain clubs where I want to go into work, I want to do my work and just go home, and I have a quiet day. But any time that I go into it's happened at quite a few clubs. When I'll go in to have a quiet day, I'd have my white colleagues be like, "What's wrong, Nigel? What's wrong, Nigel?" And I said, "There's nothing wrong with me. I just want to come in, be quiet, and go home." But in their mindset, unless I'm hee ha ha, being, you know, loud and just being my normal self, they'll feel that there's something wrong. And I'll always be, there's nothing wrong with me. I just want to come in, have a quiet day, do my work and go home. But they'll be uncomfortable with it where they're constantly asking me what's wrong, what's wrong. And then some players that I've played with, more so from the older generation, they'll come in and they'll say, "Oh, why are you so grumpy and so moody?" And they wouldn't understand that I have other personal problems going on and there's different things going on. And it's different from me being a young Black man to you being a white man playing football. And I know their mentality would always be, you should be happy that you're playing football and you're making so much money and you're not in jail or selling drugs. That's what they'll be thinking. They'll never say it. And I know that's what some of these players who I played with in my past career would be thinking, but they don't realize that just because you play football, just because you earn X amount of money, in the eyes of certain people and individuals, you're still a Black man. And some of them would be very comfortable to use the N-word. And it's just that comfort level of having conversation. And that's why I would say my hat goes out a lot to this younger generation, to being so brave to be able to speak out like they are doing and taking a stand like they are standing. But at the same time, the younger generation do have to give a bit of thanks to the older generation who've had to go through that and open the door and led a pathway for them to be able to be so free and express themselves on this social media platform. And again, it's just about that dialogue. It's about talking, and we could say we're a brotherhood in the dressing room and all that. We could do the whole lip service, but to some of the white players in the dressing room, you know, take a stand. You play with these guys, you talk to these guys, you know these guys. If they really are your brother, take a stand and, you know, make a post and, you know, really get involved in with your teammates.
Yeah, it's about opening doors. But Darren, also, I get the feeling it's about opening eyes. And I got an insight there from Nigel about what it is like to go into a changing room when Nigel was having a down day. Explain to all those who are watching what it was like for you to be a black man and to suffer this on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, it's tough. And as Nigel was saying there, he made a really good point. And to be fair, when I think about it now, it probably wasn't acceptable. But there was change rooms that I went into, and it was kind of like the norm. People would crack like racist remarks, not blatant racist remarks, but you could tell there's a bit of racism to it. And then you kind of laugh it off and think, well, he's one of my teammates, it's all right. But since this whole episode's happened, you kind of think back to it and you think, that's not acceptable. And to be fair, when I think about some of the other guys who used to laugh and joke about it, like, you kind of do feel like you're on your own. Like, if the joke's going on and you say you've got 4 or 5 white guys laughing at it, at the time you laugh at it because you think it's like kind of changing room banter. But honestly, with what's going on and a real eye-opener and the way some of these younger generations come out and outspoken, you start to think, well, that wasn't right. Do you know what I mean? And this, as Nigel was again alluding to there, this is maybe for the older generation when we was first starting out, coming through up until probably I was about, I'd say 28. Do you know what I mean? I think it happened a little bit when I was in the Villa changing room, like this kind of joking and things happening on. But you'd go, you know what? It's part of the changing room banter and you laugh about it. But honestly, like my son, obviously, if he started playing football when he got older and he come back and said, oh, they were saying this in the dressing room, I'd have to tell him, you need to tell them that it's not right. Because it should be, it's not a mockery anymore. This is serious. Do you know what I mean? Being a young black man at times can be very, very hard in this country. And I think we're really quick in this country to kind of point the fingers and say, well, it's happening over there, it's happening over there. But really, are we that clean in this country? And the answer to that is no. It happens on a daily basis. But because people put maybe a laughter after it, you can kind of get away with it. But for me, that stops today.
To me, I mean, to add to what Darren said as well with that is the fact of, we've experienced it, we've seen it in dressing rooms, but we have to realize that, you know, in our generation, we didn't really have anyone we could turn to. And again, this all stems for everything about society. Again, it's, we need more people of color in powerful positions where they're able to make a change and help. You know, there are qualified black coaches out there. There are qualified black physiotherapists, black doctors, and everything like that. So it's to give the clubs a real push to say we need to hire more people qualified from ethnic groups. And I'm not saying hire them just because of the color of their skin. I'm saying give them an opportunity or a chance because there are qualified people out there. And I'm sure Darren can relate to this, that he knows that in times of coming through the whole academy system and then playing first team football, we're not naive or stupid to know that our careers could be ruined by a coach or a manager who may not like us and start using cold words. Was something that we've discussed before again of, oh, he has an attitude problem. Oh, he's troublesome. And football's a small community. We're not going to, you know, lie about it. All managers and coaches talk. And once that stigma is attached to a black player, you'd be surprised at how many clubs don't touch him. Oh, you got an attitude problem. Oh, what's he like? And that, while we've seen white colleagues who have done a lot of crazy things in their footballing career, and they keep continuing to get in chance after chance after chance. And it's not even just at the first team level. You got to look at the youth team level as well. A young black man goes through a lot more difficult and different things in life than the white counterpart does. If that young black man is talented, how can a white coach relate to him when most of these white coaches don't really want to make the effort because we're all ignorant to things until it directly affects us? And I'm not saying that they should, but it's just the reality of life. But if you have more young black coaches or black coaches in general, instead of just saying, oh, he's got an attitude problem, let a black coach go and speak to him to say, look, what's going on? What's the family dynamics? What are you going through? What have you experienced? This is my experience. This is how you overcome it. Because it's very hard for a white man to speak for a black man and what he's going through and what he's experienced, because you'll never be able to understand it.
Nigel, you were making an interesting point before the break about getting more black coaches into the game. Did you feel when you were coming through the academies and coming through even the clubs you went to the likes of West Ham, to Villa and wherever, that you had to try harder, you had to put in even more than your white colleagues?
Oh, for sure. For sure. And again, it's a conversation that will make a lot of people uncomfortable, but it's the reality. And I'm sure if you speak to a lot of black players that did go on to have, a successful career in Premier League level or, Championship level for a long time, they'll tell you that somewhere along the line, other black players or black family members would have told them the reality of life of what you face is you always have to work twice as hard or 3 times as hard as your white counterpart. That's just the life we came in. I'll never forget the time when I just joined West Ham and a certain player pulled me to the side and told me, look, be careful of X, Y, and Z. I'm not going to let out the full story yet, but he told me, he gave me a warning, and I'll never forget that. I'll never forget my times that I had great conversations with the likes of Robbie L. And I always tell him that, because at that time I can understand why they would pull the young black men that they might believe had great potential to go and be successful and talk to them on a personal level, because again, even with them, when they were playing, they didn't have someone that they can turn to. They knew how the system was, where they have the code words that they'll use. He's troublesome, he's this, he's that. They didn't have no power. So they had to just continue to play. They didn't have a voice. It's this generation that has a voice. And for me, it's just the fact of, like I said, it's not hiring black and brown coaches just for the sake of it. It's hiring the ones that are qualified, because there are a lot that are qualified out there. And even with the TV production, I think that there can be a lot more greater diversity with black TV pundits, because there's a lot of them who know the game well. They're very articulate. They're well spoken. They can dissect the game well, where they can give their colleagues and ex-players a different understanding of maybe what this black player is going through than the typical cliche negative words that keep getting associated with black players. We've seen it. Oh, he's so big and strong. Oh, he's got so much pace and power. Not about technical aspects, not about understanding of the game or how he reads the game so well. He's so intelligent. It's just simple, typical words that have always been associated with black players. And I think for the Premier League's benefit of the amount of different nationalities that you have and the different players that you have, it would only suit you well to encourage clubs to select and show greater diversity. We're in 2020, and I think it's only maybe 3 black managers out of 92 professional league clubs, or maybe 4.
Would you like to be a manager, Nigel? Do you still want to? Or Darren, do you want to be a manager? Do you want to coach?
Well, as Nigel was saying there, it is difficult because I know quite a few black coaches that have not got any work. Now, I know one of them, Michael Johnson, he won't mind me saying this, at Derby. He used to speak to him all the time. He's one of the most qualified coaches out there. He's got absolutely everything. Now, I remember having a conversation with him about the hoops and the hurdles he had to jump through to get his qualification. So he said he'd been to 40 interviews and he maybe got 1 callback. And these are some of the clubs, he was legends at some of these clubs, and they didn't even call him back. He said to me that every time he got a badge, they said, oh, no, you need this. He'd go and get that qualification. And it was like they just kept moving the goalpost for him, making it virtually impossible for him to get a job. But even as Nigel was saying there as well, about I always felt at times, I think when you're in the youth team, I felt more so that I had to do extra so I could be seen as equal as these guys. So I had to work harder than everybody else. I had to go the extra mile. And I think as you progress, obviously up into the first team, your kind of reputation kind of precedes you. But then I think the media then play a part in it. I think then with the media, you kind of feel like you're having to do extra to earn their approval in some respect. Because I always used to feel that they had such a hold on, say, for international squad picks or how they spoke about a player, that if I wasn't, I think my 7, 8 out of 10 would be someone else's 4 or 5, which was crazy, because I think, well, I played really well here. But the narrative that was always used, he wasn't very good. And I always used to put that, well, what could it be? because I know I'm playing well. These things are going really well, but yet you can't get that backing from certain parts of the media. So I do think when it comes to racism and attributes like that, I do think the media do play a massive part. And as Nigel was saying there as well, it's some of the words that they use, and you start to think, well, hold on, there is a pattern here that it is not right. And I think, to be fair, if I can remember rightly, it was Raheem Sterling was the kind of one who opened it up with the 2 stories back to back. And I'm so glad he did that, because this would continue if he hadn't opened people's eyes to it.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is you both had a career where there was a lot of hurt there, I would think, a lot of pain. And Nigel, I wonder what you did with that hurt, with that pain. Where did that go?
It doesn't go anywhere. It's just the life that it's just because of the, I'm telling you, it does not go anywhere. It's literally just that we were grounded from when we were coming through. We knew what it was and how the so-called system works. And you just had to do your best to get through it. You know, you hope for change, you pray for change, you move for change. And everything that Darren said there is right, that there's always some other obstacle in the way. And then when you try to explain and have conversations with some of your colleagues or friends that may be white, they just don't see it. They're like, I don't see it. No, I don't agree to that. He says, and it's because we're all ignorant to certain situations and things until it directly affects us. But how can it ever directly affect a white person when the world is basically built, it's a white man's world? And I hope people don't get offended by saying that, but it's just the reality that we're living in, because they have all the power, all the corporate ways, all the politicians, everything. So they've never faced discrimination or racism. So how would they truly understand? It's for those that really want to understand, to have these uncomfortable conversations with their black friends and try and get a deeper understanding and see in their own personal lives if they can make an impact by educating their kids or themselves better to be better persons, to see if they can make a change, and this is something that we went through our entire career. And again, even with football, just for the football fans, there was one club that I was at in my career when someone who was hired by the club, a professional of a very high level, took a liking to me. So he'd come in 2 days a week. I'd get treatment off this professional. And he really took a liking to me. We used to have deep conversations about race relation. And now this guy was of Chinese heritage. And he told me one time, he said, you know what, Nigel, you could do so much and everything. And then we started talking about race and the difficulties and stuff. And he told me about his experience of coming through one of the, I think it was maybe Oxford or Cambridge, coming through one of these universities. And he was saying that he's seen it in his times when he's had black colleagues, black friends, not footballers, but high level professionals. And he said he saw that they were very qualified, probably even more qualified than their white counterparts. But what would happen is there will be this glass ceiling where they'll never get any further than that. And this is someone who never had to tell me that. And I could tell you another story of one time when I got in trouble, and my barrister that I had at the time, and she was a white lady. She was, let's just say, blue blood through and through, white English. She had, again, had a conversation with me. She really took a liking to me. And she even told me herself, which made my jaw drop, where she said, yep, England is a racist country and there is a glass ceiling for ethnic minorities. And it's only she felt comfortable to tell me just because of the conversations we were having, and she had no reason to tell me that. But these are experiences that we go through where when you try and let people understand and relate, some people get uncomfortable. I'll always admit that every time I try and talk about racism and race throughout my career, my life in England, a lot of my white friends and colleagues get uncomfortable with that.